Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Cabinet meeting. I am Councillor Andrew Husband, Leader of Durham County Council and Chair of this meeting. This meeting is being broadcast live through our YouTube channel. Before we commence with today's formal business, I would like to cover off some of the housekeeping issues for us all to follow. Please switch off or make silent your mobile phones and all of the devices. Keep microphones switched off at all times unless invited to speak by myself as the Chair. When invited to speak, please switch on the microphone nearest to you and introduce yourself. We'll move on to item 1, and we have one apologies for absence from Councillor Tim McGuinness. Moving on to item 2, public questions. We've got one question received from Mr. Peacock. Can I invite Mr. Peacock to ask his question?
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. With the Cabinet's stance on the climate emergency, which green conditions not mandated by the government do the Cabinet still enforce? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peacock. Can I invite Councillor Genna, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Neighbourhoods, Environment and Police, to respond to the question?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Peacock, for your question. To start, I'd like to gently point out some challenges that I had when reading the question. First, there appears to be some sort of inference about what the Cabinet's position is on a supposed climate emergency without any clarity on what that position is believed to be. Second, it's not really clear what's meant by green conditions. I certainly don't know what they are, and I've asked a lot of people, and they don't appear to know what they are either. And third, there seems to be a misunderstanding about what the role of Cabinet is and what it's here to do. With that in mind, I'm not really sure what the question's getting at, but I'll do my best to answer it regardless. 0.83, 0.00532,528, 0.00001597584. That's the approximate relative percentage contribution to annual global CO2 emissions of the UK, County Durham and Durham County Council respectively. Emissions in the UK peaked in the early 70s and have been fallen by 62% since then, and they're still going down. As it stands today, the UK is 69th in the list of countries by carbon emissions per capita, falling far below even the great global superpowers of Mongolia, the Cook Islands, the Maldives, and Aruba. If there is a climate emergency, then the UK has done its bit, and so have the people of Durham, and they continue to do so. With that in mind, and I'll make this absolutely clear, this administration will not unnecessarily burden our residents with meaningless, costly, and unfairly punitive restrictions for no tangible benefit. Does that mean we want to destroy our planet? Of course not. Does it mean we want to ruin our local environment? Also, of course not. But Durham has had enough of national and local governments of all colours putting it in social and economic handcuffs. We will not do the same. So what will we do? As our council plan for 2025 and to 2030 makes clear, we'll focus on a practical environmental stewardship. What this means is an approach based on pragmatism, balancing risks and benefits, and delivering cost-efficient results that can be felt, seen, and enjoyed by our residents. Building on the council plan, I've been working with officers on a new environmental plan. That plan will enable our local environment and our people to thrive together. This plan will be presented to Cabinet at a future meeting. I look forward to presenting it. Before that plan has even been finished, though, this Cabinet has already agreed substantial investment to benefit our local environment. We push hard to get a better financial deal for our residual waste processing, with the proposed TVRF facility being far more environmentally friendly than its predecessor. We've agreed significant investment in the landfill sites we inherited from previous administrations to protect from future environmental harm. I'm working with officers at the moment to develop pilot biodiversity net gain projects on council-owned land. We are delivering programmes to improve our open spaces, country parks, nature reserves and more. Recently, I asked officers to revisit more than a dozen wildflower and wildgrass projects that the previous administration couldn't get over the line. In this meeting today, we'll be presented our new local recovery strategy. We will do everything we realistically can to make the lives of our residents better, but we will not, I repeat, will not participate in sanctimonious, performative climate activism driven by a set of luxury middle-class beliefs not held by the majority of our residents. I trust that clears up any confusion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Gunner. If we can move on to item 3, minutes. Minutes of the meeting held on 11th of February 2026. I'm happy to move the minutes. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you.
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can we agree the minutes are a correct record? Great. I can confirm that the minutes are agreed. Thank you. Item 4, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest in relation to any items on the agenda? Thank you. Item 5, County Durham Plan, Houses and Multiple Occupation, Interim Policy. Can I invite Mark Stamper, Head of Inclusive Growth and Partnerships, Regeneration, Economy and Growth, to present the report?
Thank you, Chair, members. The purpose of this report is to seek Cabinet approval to consult on an interim plan and policy for houses in multiple occupation, or HMOs, covering parts of the county outside the existing Durham City Article 4 areas. Under current plan regulations, dwelling houses occupied by a single household can change to a small HMO of 3 to 6 residents without planning permission. Local authorities may withdraw these permitted development rights through an Article 4 direction, where there is local need to manage the growth of HMOs. County Durham currently has 3 Article 4 directions in Durham City and the surrounding areas. These were introduced in response to concentrations of HMOs, predominantly occupied by students, to the detriment of maintaining mixed and balanced communities. Evidence now shows an increase in HMOs outside of the Article 4 areas, the existing areas. In response, the Council has progressed a further Article 4 direction, which will withdraw permitted development rights for HMO conversions across the remainder of the county, and this direction will take effect on the 17th of August 2026. The interim HMO plan and policy is being prepared to ensure clarity for applicants, residents and stakeholders on how HMO planning applications will be assessed. The policy seeks to prevent over-concentration of HMOs, to protect neighbour and residential amenity and secure high standards of amenity for occupants. Subject to Cabinet approval, consultation on the interim HMO policy will take place from the 25th of March to the 5th of May 2026. And once adopted, the interim policy will act as a material consideration in determining planning applications for HMOs outside of the Durham City Article 4 areas. Policy 16 of the County Durham Plan will continue to apply within the existing Durham City Article 4 areas, and the interim policy does not alter its status. A single policy that can apply to all HMOs regardless of location will be explored as a part of the preparation of the new County Durham Plan. Chair, that concludes my report and recommendations set out in paragraph 9 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Can I invite Councillor Lyons, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Communities and Civic Resilience, to move the report?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mark. During the past few years, we have seen a steady increase in HMOs outside of Durham City, with the number rising more significantly since 2021. Residents have expressed concerns that the increase in HMOs is negatively impacting upon residential amenity and local character. In response to this, an Article 4 direction has been introduced which will withdraw permitted development rights for HMO conversions across the remainder of the county. An interim HMO planning policy is required to guide decision-making once the direction comes into force. The policy will benefit both existing residents and future occupiers by protecting residential amenity and ensuring appropriate standards of accommodation. There will be a consultation period, responses will be considered, and the interim policy amended as necessary. I encourage residents and other interested parties to respond to the consultation. I therefore propose the recommendations in paragraph 9 of the report.
Thank you, Councillor Lyons. Can I invite Councillor Hunt, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Children and Young People's Services, to second the report?
Thank you, Chair. HMOs can provide a more affordable form of accommodation for a wide range of groups. However, an over-concentration of HMOs within a locality can have a negative impact on the residential amenities and change the overall character of an area. Other negative impacts can include a loss of family housing, the impacts on community cohesion due to the presence of more transient population. It is important we use our planning powers to maintain a mixed and balanced communities and drive up standards of accommodation. I therefore am happy to second the recommendations on paragraph 9 of the report.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Are there any other Cabinet members wishing to speak? Does Cabinet agree the recommendations? Thank you. Item 6, Pride and Place Programme. Can I invite Mark Stamper, Head of Inclusive Growth, Partnerships, Regeneration, Economy and Growth, to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. Members, so this report provides a short update on the expansion of the Government's £5 billion Pride in Place programme and the steps that we now need to take as we move into Phase 2 delivery across County Durham. Government has selected 4 areas in the county to participate: Spennymoor in Phase 1, Crook North and Towlaw, Peterlee East and South Stanley in Phase 2. Each neighbourhood can receive up to 20 million over 10 years, and the funding split differs by phase, as set out in the report. Spennymoor receives a 75% capital and 25% revenue allocation. Phase 2 areas receive 63% capital and 37% revenue, reflecting a stronger emphasis on community engagement and capacity building. Phase 2 also marks a shift to smaller neighbourhood geographies, targeting communities with the highest deprivation and weakest social infrastructure. Updated government guidance issued in December sets out how these areas must now establish neighbourhood boards. These boards must have an independent chair, and the council is the accountable body for the funds, and the local MP, with at least 51% of members living or working in the area will be represented on those boards. Their role is to co-produce a 10-year vision and a resident-led Pride in Place investment plan, which must be submitted to government by the 28th of November 2026. To support this early work, the council has already received 150,000 of capacity funding per area, and this will help establish the boards, resource dedicated project officer support, and enable extensive co-design and engagement, ensuring that residents set the priorities, shape the interventions, and hold delivery partners to account. Key next steps include confirming board membership, followed by government approval in the autumn. This programme represents a significant long-term opportunity to empower residents and transform neighbourhoods, and today's decision allows us to move forward at pace. Chair, that concludes my report, and recommendations are set out in paragraph 14 of the report.
Thank you, Mark. Can I invite Councillor Allison, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Leisure, Tourism, Regeneration and High Street, to move the report.
Thank you, Chair. Can I first thank Mark and his team for the report. This is a major 10-year investment opportunity, with the government selecting Crook North and Towlaw, Peterlee East and South Stanley to join Spennymoor in this ambitious programme. The national guidance makes clear that strong, inclusive neighbourhood boards will be essential, with community representatives at the heart of decision-making and the council acting as an accountable body. By accepting this funding and formalising our role, we can unlock the potential of all 3 Phase 2 areas and build on the positive learning emerging from Spennymoor. This programme provides a significant long-term opportunity to empower residents and transform our neighbourhoods. I therefore propose the recommendations in paragraph 14. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Allison. Can I invite Councillor Lyons, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Communities and Civic Resilience, to second the report.
Thank you, Chair. The expansion of Pride and Place aligns strongly with our wider approach to locality working, community empowerment and inclusive regeneration. The emphasis on resident-led planning, transparent governance and early investment and engagement will ensure these neighbourhoods shape the priorities that matter most to them. I therefore second the recommendations in paragraph 14 in the report.
Thank you, Councillor Lyons. Any other Cabinet members wishing to speak? Does Cabinet agree the recommendations? Thank you. Moving on to item 7, Quarter 3, 2025-26 Performance Management Report. Can I invite Paul Darby, Corporate Director of Resources, to present the report?
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. This report provides the Quarter 3 Performance Report, updated for performance to the 31st of December. It builds on the Council's objectives and priorities as set out in the Council Plan, which was reviewed and agreed back in October 2025. As is usual, the progress against a range of performance indicators is contextualised within the report with some benchmarking data where that's available and information from service teams. It does include a range of service level dashboards with supporting narrative and a clear golden thread between the priorities of this council and the performance of the operational teams across the board. This is in line with the government's best value principles. The report draws out in the executive summary some of the key areas of good performance, and I would highlight for the Cabinet's attention that over the last 12 months we've supported over 13 100 businesses, securing £5.7 million of investment for companies and 19 inward investments. We've also created or safeguarded over 2,100 jobs, which is significantly higher than the previous year. And at the end of December, more than 90% of our business floor space owned by the council was occupied, above the 90% target for the first time in almost 2 years. Our adult social care teams and the demand remain stable, and we continue to provide a wide range of services to support people in support of the care emergency, and we're expanding our reablement offer to help retain independence for longer. Continued improvement is evident in the timeliness of education, health and social care plan assessments, and almost 3/4 have completed within timescale in 2025, which is much higher than regional and national benchmarks and a significant improvement on recent years. As members will appreciate, this strong performance is notable and is achieved across the board. However, there are some challenges identified in the report, and some of those linked to the support we provide to families and children remains a complex challenge. There is continued high levels of demand in our statutory social care services, with increasing numbers of children on child protection plans and coming into care, more older children entering care with more complex needs and histories of trauma, which in itself is driving cost demand into the council's budget. The Durham Cares Plan sets out an extensive work and range of work that we are undertaking to support children and young people in our care, and to move to a process of increasing our in-house provision, supported accommodation and activities to return to family wherever it is possible and safe to do so. Furthermore, like many other authorities, there are a number of children who are electively educated at home, and that number is rising. And that last autumn school census, over 1,300 children and young people, 1.9% of the school population were educated at home, which is higher than the England and North East average. And there's some detailed analysis of this cohort being undertaken, and work with the schools and other partner agencies to support those children and those families. Housing support also remains an area of need and concern. We're carrying out more homeless assessments compared to 2 years ago, and we've seen an increase in households with priority need. And these households must be provided with emergency housing, and subsequently this has increased our cost for temporary accommodation. At Q3, we helped 30 households threatened with homelessness to stay in their own home, 59 households to move to alternative accommodation, and we also secured suitable accommodation for 240 households assessed as being homeless. The main performance report is attached, and it's a detailed report at Appendix 2. As I said, the executive summary draws out some of the key highlights, and there's greater detail contained within the various chapters of the report. The performance information in this report will be presented to the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Management Board and to the Thematic Overview and Scrutiny Committees, and in due course, where there'll be more chance for more discussion and in-depth analysis of the Council's performance. The recommendations, Chair, are set out at paragraph 25, which are for Cabinet to note the contents of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, for our Q3 performance update. Since the last performance report, we have set out our first budget as a new administration. Just a little reminder, minimising council tax increases for our residents, the only council to achieve a 1.99% with no use of reserves. The first time we've done this in Durham in 15 years. In setting a balanced budget for next year, the council does continue to face significant pressures relating to increased demand and costs specifically for children, adult services, social care, increased supplier costs relating to existing government policy, national living wage, with wider inflationary pressures, etc., increased costs linked to new government policies, changes to relating to the waste collection and disposable food waste, etc. These ongoing financial challenges mean that it is vital we continue to focus on the essentials and meet head-on the challenges we continue to face from growing demands and national policy decisions. Our council plan reflects our political priorities and gives us a strategic framework for the next 5 years to help us deliver the best possible value for money services for the people of County Durham, and ensure that the organisation has a clear focus on the things that matter most to residents and businesses. And I do note and welcome the good performance outlined in the report across a broad range of services. Particularly note is the support and success of local business growth, an increase in confidence that businesses are showing and have in County Durham, which is much needed. Improved efficiency of our customer contact processes, which is also positive, and our retention of apprentices improved recruitment, outcomes which show that Durham County Council is an attractive place to work and an employer of choice. I also note the challenges that are inherent in the report, particularly the ongoing high demand in children's social care and the underlying complexity of this demand and sufficiency which is driving higher costs, all of which reinforces the need for our care emergency declaration last July and the wider refocusing of our priorities. There are a range of other areas to note which are summarised in the executive summary of the main performance report in Index Appendix 2, and greater detail is contained throughout the report with the respective chapters and dashboards, which the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Management Board and the thematic scrutiny committees will no doubt get their teeth into. With that, I propose that Cabinet note the report. Are there any other Cabinet members wishing to speak? Thank you. Can I ask Cabinet to note? On to item 8. It's the 2026-2027 Q3 forecast outturn for the revenue budget, capital budgets, collection fund and treasury management. And can I invite Paul Darby once again to go through the report? Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and good morning again. So, as you mentioned there, Chair, the report has a number of purposes. It sort of updates the Cabinet on our Q3 forecast for our general fund revenue position, the performance against the dedicated schools grant, including spending against the special educational needs and disability services and for our maintained schools. It updates Cabinet on our capital programme and revisions to that capital programme and spend against it and performance against the Treasury and prudential indicators. It also updates the Cabinet on the Q3 forecast for the 2 collection funds for council tax and business rates, and provides an overview of progress in delivering against the savings targets that were set when the budget was agreed in February of last year. In terms of the council's revenue budget, the general fund underspend has increased by £9.5 million to £14.2 million forecast to year end. The major changes relating to the Newcastle Airport refinancing and the private sector partner sales, partial sales of their shares in the Newcastle Airport, which has produced a dividend to the council of around about £6.3 million. Plus, we're expecting some additional investment income and higher underspend in terms of corporate contingencies, with energy costs being around about £1 million less than what was forecast at Q2. Across the service groupings, the position's around £1.2 million better than the previous forecast, with the looked after children placement budget being about £400,000 higher than at Q2, and the updated forecast reflecting a £2.4 million forecast underspend against our home to school transport costs as a result of the demand management, route optimisation and contract management work that's been undertaken as part of the transformation programme. This improved position has already been reflected in the 26-27 budgets we agreed last month and was adjusted for part of the 26-27 budget setting. The general fund reserve is therefore now forecast to be £45.4 million at the year end, which is 7.3% of the 2025-26 net budget requirement. We will need to review this position at year end, where we'll need to consider allocating some additional fundings to the early retirement voluntary redundancy reserve, and also set aside around £4.2 million to cover the council's share of the 10% minimum write-off of the SCND deficit that will be in place at the 31st of March this year. Speaking of that, the statutory override ends for the high needs deficit on the 31st of March 28. The council by that point will have had to fund at least £10 million from its reserves, which represents the residual cumulative shortfall on the high needs stability grant, which the government has promised to fund the cumulative high needs deficits. Our earmarked reserves are now forecast to be £157.6 million to the year end, an in-year reduction of £11.4 million, which is around £2 million less than what we were forecasting at Q3. The maintained schools reserves for the 125 maintained schools we still have are forecast to be £21.3 million, an in-year reduction of £5.5 million, when the Q2 position was forecasting a reduction of £7.7 million. In terms of the high needs deficit, this is now forecast to be £41.9 million to this year end, an in-year overspend against a high need SEND grant of £18.9 million, which is an increase on the Q2 position of around £2 million. The report sets out the changes to the 25-26 and the MTFP capital programme, including the amendments in terms of the Toffdale and Net Park propositions agreed by Cabinet on the 11th of February. The updated capital budgets also include the removal of the Milburn Gate scheme, with the capital budgets reduced by a total of £55.5 million, including £52.1 million of self-financed borrowing commitments on the back of the sale of the facility to a private sector owner. The revised 25-26 capital programme therefore is £227.8 million, and the MTFP 15 capital programme is now £593 million, with actual expenditure to the 31st of December being 128.3 or 56% of the projected expenditure in this financial year. In terms of those collection funds, the updated forecasts are broadly in line with the Q2 forecasts, a net surplus for us of just under £3 million, which is about £47,000 different to the Q2 position. To set a balanced budget for the current year, the Council agreed just over £18 million worth of savings in 25-26, and based on the position to the 31st of December and forecast to the year end, we expect to deliver around about £17.4 million or 96.3% of those savings in year, with £674,000 at risk or undelivered in the year, split £491,000 for neighbourhoods and environment, and £184,000 in respect of regeneration, economy and growth. An element of these underachieved savings is a timing issue, but where this is not the case, the services are looking at developing mitigation to offset the unachieved saving. Chair, the recommendations are set out at paragraph 25, which are largely for Cabinet to note the updated forecast, but also to agree the capital programme amendments as set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. Can I invite Councillor Grimes, Deputy Leader of the Council and Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Finance, to move the report.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all of our officers and budget managers across the Council for their continued tight grip on our finances. The updated position shows that we're forecasting a net £14.2 million underspend to year end, which is an improvement on the previous forecast at Q2 in December and Q1 in September. All Cabinet members continue to work with officers to ensure we carefully manage the revenue budget position and deliver value for money for services for our residents. Our focus remains very much on tackling the care emergency we inherited, and in doing so ensure we've got a tight grip on our financial position. The report sets out details of the managed underspends across most services to ensure that in overall terms we remain within budget. Within-year underspends largely related to one-off items or managed positions in lieu of the budget savings required in 26-27 as part of the recently approved medium-term financial strategy, which has delivered a balanced budget next year and a well below average council tax increase for our residents, well below inflation. The additional one-off income we expect to receive from the Newcastle International Airport is very welcome. I mean, hey, that was a blind-driven investment, wasn't it? The receipt of dividend. Well, the receipt of dividend and disbursement funding from the refinancing and the part sale of the private sector shareholding shows that that particular investment in a key transport hub in the northeast remains a worthwhile and important one for the council. The rise in spending pressures in our looked after placements budget and in our special educational needs services remain very concerning for me and the wider Cabinet. Whilst we welcome the government's announcement of some high need stability funding to write off the overspends built up over recent years, it's clearly by the government's own admission not enough, and to be perfectly honest, I don't know how they can justify expecting our local taxpayers to foot at least 10% of the bill for their underfunding and mess of statutory services imposed upon us. We're sticking to our word and pressing on with the investments in our special educational needs capacity by investing an additional £80 million in our local education provision to ensure that we meet local demand requirements as part of MTFP 16. By promoting inclusion in our schools, whilst ensuring that we've got adequate specialist placements to hand and avoid over-reliance on the independent sector. Our focus will also remain on ensuring the Durham Cares strategy is a success by investing in in-house residential placements, new capacity for short breaks for disabled children, and expanding our foster care provision. We should be well placed to ensure that we continue to contain the cost pressures which have emerged in recent years, but we have to recognise that children's social care pressures remain a key financial risk for this authority. In terms of what that means for our reserves position, our general reserve is now forecast to be 45.4 million at year end, representing a 7.28% of the 25-26 net budget requirement. Earmarked reserves are now forecast to reduce by 11 million this year to around 158 million. These levels of reserves are proportionate to our scale and our size and are essential to help mitigate against the financial risks that we continue to face. We'll need to set aside 4.2 million of these reserves at year end to meet the minimum 10% shortfall funding in high needs funding, which the government have conveniently passed on to us. In terms of our high needs dedicated schools grant, forecast overspending in this area has increased to around 18.9 million this year. That's 2.2 higher than what it was previously forecast, resulting in a cumulative deficit of around 42 million by year end, due to the government failing to adequately get a grip of that system. The government's proposals on reforms to special educational needs funding and delivery require significant scrutiny from Cabinet in the coming weeks to ensure that our children and parents get a fair and fully funded deal from these reforms. But I do fear that, quite frankly, these reforms will not go far enough. And I dare say, actually, they're fighting like rats in a sack, probably won't even get through. I was pleased to read that we're on course to successfully deliver virtually all of the savings proposals that we inherited from the previous administration. That actually demonstrates our ability to provide real value for money and sets us in good stead for delivery of savings and elimination of waste as part of the recently approved medium-term financial strategy. As part of the review of the capital programme, it was pleasing to see that the private sector intervention in Milburn Gate, and even more pleasing to be able to cut the 55 million budget commitment that we inherited from the previous administration to purchase and remediate this development. We wish the new owners every success in bringing it to life. We've significantly increased our budget commitment to attract a major international investor to Net Park, which will be largely externally funded. The report also reflects the recent decisions we made around the future of the Toft Hill bypass scheme. In summary, colleagues, I believe that this report provides a very positive position despite some of the challenges we inherited and continue to face. It's nearly a year since we took control of the council, and I feel like we've made huge progress to bring financial stability to the council and deliver value for money for our residents, as well as age in my face, Chair. And with that, I move the report and recommendations at paragraph 25.
Thank you, Councillor Grimes. And for Paul, of course, for the presentation of the 25-26 quarter 3 financial forecasting. The report provides an encouraging update and demonstrates the Cabinet's success in stabilising the financial position of the Council and ensuring the Council is on the right footing to tackle the challenges it faces and the opportunities it can grasp over the medium term. I welcome the news that the Doge-influenced Council's forecast in year underspend has increased, and this is down to the effective management of the Council's high-risk budget, the areas in preparation to deliver the MTFP 16 savings, plus the receipt of some additional one-off income as a result of ownership changes and balance sheet refinancing of the International Airport in Newcastle. Receipt of these dividend and disbursement payments will enable us to stabilise our reserve position. Like the rest of Cabinet, I remain very focused about the growing demand and cost pressures in children's social care and special educational needs. Our recently approved capital programme will go undoubtedly some way to building resilience and capacity in our services to meet this rising demand. However, it will take all of the efforts of officers and members to ensure we contain and manage these rising pressures as best we can. I do share Councillor Grimes' concerns regarding the government reforms to special education needs, that they will not be swift enough or suitably resourced to manage the demands we are seeing, and we must continue to work closely with officers, schools and external partners to ensure we work to implement these reforms. The ongoing challenges in children's social care substantiate the Council's decision to focus on what really matters. And we are working really closely with the Children and Young People Services team and their Corporate Director, Rachel Farnham, to give her all the support she needs to meet these challenges, which we must all take responsibility for the successful delivery of the Durham Cares strategy. The amendments to the capital programme set out in this report are significant. We want to deliver value for money investments which create quality and highly skilled new jobs in places such as Net Park. Our increased planned investment in Net Park, rather than a running track, will unlock huge economic opportunities in the county and attract a major international investor to our county, with the increased investment being funded by them, and should they win the national space contract through the MOD. You know, Net Park is really becoming, and quite rightly, a global brand for what it does. And anyway, Chair, as myself, I would like to second the report. Are there any other Cabinet members wishing to speak? Does Cabinet agree the recommendations? Thank you. On to item 9, Local Nature Recovery Strategy. Could I invite Mark Jackson, Corporate Director of Neighbourhoods and Environment, to present the report?
Thank you, Chair. This report provides background to the Local Nature Recovery Strategy, the LNRS, and provides the proposed publication version of the strategy to be agreed by Cabinet. The LNRS is a statutory requirement under the Environment Act, and Durham County Council has been appointed by DEFRA as the responsible authority to produce it. The strategy comprises two key components, the first one being a statement of priorities, which is the written strategy, and the second part being a local habitat map showing opportunities for nature recovery. The LNRS is advisory, not mandatory, and intended to guide land managers and developers on effective actions for nature recovery. The strategy will influence multiple agendas, including planning, especially around biodiversity net gain, agri-environment schemes, nature-based solutions, e.g. flood mitigation, health and well-being, and investment in nature recovery. Extensive engagement and consultation took place from 2023 to 2026 with residents, landowners, farmers, schools, conservation groups, land agents and statutory bodies. Public consultation showed strong support for nature recovery, with over 80% of residents strongly agreeing that wildlife decline is urgent, grasslands, woodlands and hedgerows are consistently prioritised habitats. Key species repeatedly highlighted by residents include invertebrates, especially bees and butterflies, red squirrels, hedgehogs, wading birds, swifts and martins, and mammals such as bats and voles. Pre-consultation feedback from Natural England was positive, stating a high-quality, collaborative LNRS has been produced. Consultation feedback led to refinements, including recognition of the role of well-designed development and the inclusion of swift bricks and nest boxes. Also notes on pesticide reduction, blue infrastructure and national trails. Clarifications are also made to the priorities and measures. The LNRS is on track for publication by the 31st of March 2026 deadline, having met all regulatory requirements, with delivery planning underway and regional funding expected via NECA and DEFRA to support projects that deliver this strategy. The recommendations are set out in paragraph 7, including agreeing to the publication of the LNRS. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mark. Can I invite Councillor Genna, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Neighbourhoods, Environment and Police Relations, to move the report?
Thank you, Chair. Well, first, this one will be a bit gentler. I'm pleased to introduce the report on the Local Nature Recovery Strategy, and before I really dive in here, I'd like to thank Mark, James and Stuart Priestley for the good work they've done on this. This report and this document, it's a statutory requirement under the Environment Act 2021 and a step forward in delivering on our ambition of a practical environmental stewardship. The strategy reflects over 2 years of engagement with residents, landowners, farmers, schools, conservation bodies and statutory partners. The response has been clear and consistent. The respondents value nature, they recognise the need to address wildlife decline, and they support action to recover and enhance our natural environment. The LNRS supports exactly that. It sets out clear priorities, practical measures, and a comprehensive habitat map to guide where nature recovery efforts will have the greatest benefit. It will inform, although importantly not mandate, planning, support farmers and land managers, enable nature-based solutions to some of our environmental challenges, and help attract investment into our county. The draft strategy has already earned positive feedback from Natural England, as Mark highlighted, who commented on the quality and collaboration behind it. Consultation responses have further shaped and strengthened its content, ensuring it reflects local knowledge and the perspectives of key stakeholders. Again, this is not a prescriptive document, but an enabling one, offering guidance, clarity and opportunity. It positions County Durham at the forefront of nature recovery, aligned with national expectations and supported by emerging regional funding. This is an important milestone for the county and an important investment in the landscapes, wildlife and communities we all care about. I therefore recommend this report to Cabinet and seek approval to publish the local nature recovery strategy on the 31st of March 2026. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Genner. Can I invite Councillor Brown, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Adult and Health Services, to second the report?
Thank you, Chair, and I would like to echo Councillor Genner's thanks to the officers for compiling this report. This report reflects a thorough consultation, strong public support and a clear evidence-based approach to restoring nature across County Durham. It meets all statutory requirements and positions us very well for delivery. I am happy to endorse its publication and I second the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Are there any other Cabinet members wishing to speak? Does Cabinet agree the recommendations? Thank you. Item 10, High Street Rental Auctions. Can I invite Mark Stamper, Head of Inclusive GP REG, to present the report?
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to update Cabinet on progress since its October 2025 decision to launch formal consultation on designating Bishop Auckland and Stanley as pilot high street rental auction areas, otherwise known as HSRAs, and to seek approval for the next steps in implement the HSRA powers. Since Cabinet last considered this matter, the National HSRA framework has been finalised and updated government guidance has been published in January 2026. This has clarified the operational requirements, data standards and expectations for local authorities. Following consultations held from November 2025 to February 2026, both towns showed clear support among community members and stakeholders for moving forward with the HSRA designation, with only minor changes now suggested for the designated area in Stanley. The engagement process has included participation from local businesses, landlords and residents who widely acknowledge that long-term property vacancies continue to weaken high street activity and contribute to antisocial behaviour. Vacancy levels remain a significant challenge. As of February 2026, the county-wide average vacancy rate stands at 22.1%, still considerably above the national high street average of 13.8%. Bishop Auckland's vacancy rate has reduced slightly to 33.9% due to ongoing regeneration activity, but it remains one of the highest in the country. Stanley's vacancy rate has continued to rise, with several prominent properties remaining empty for more than 12 months. The updated HSRA guidance reinforces that powers are intended to complement and not replace existing support mechanisms, including the towns and villages vulnerable buildings approach by the council, business grants and other enforcement tools. HSRA powers provide an additional route to secure the reuse of persistently vacant properties where voluntary engagement has not delivered results. The legal tests for designation relating to duration of vacancy and the potential for local benefit have been reassessed using the updated national criteria. The report sets out both Bishop Auckland and Stanley continue to meet this threshold for designation. The guidance also reiterates that HSRA is not suitable for properties requiring major structural refurbishment, and our assessment has identified a manageable number of eligible properties in each town that meet the criteria and are suitable for the auction process. So piloting the HSRA in 2 locations will allow the council to understand the resource implications, which for the pilot areas are fully covered by the new burdens monies from government. understand the level of landlord engagement and the effectiveness of the auction process in securing new uses. And this learning will inform any future expansion of HSRA powers to other towns in the county, which will be subject to further Cabinet consideration. So, Chair, the recommendations are set out in paragraph 8 of the report.
Thank you, Mark. Can I invite Councillor Allison, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Leisure, Tourism, Regeneration and High Street, to move the report?
Thank you, Chair. Again, thank you to Mark and his team. I welcome this updated report and the progress made since Cabinet first considered HSRA designation in October 2025. Our existing approach to tackling vacancy through the Vulnerable Buildings Programme, business support and targeted enforcement remains essential. However, vacancy levels in some of our towns continue to rise, and we must use every tool available to us. The consultation has shown that local businesses and communities want us to take a more proactive approach to bringing empty properties back into use. HSRA powers give us an additional mechanism to do that, particularly where voluntary engagement has not been successful. Piloting HSRA in Bishop Auckland and Stanley will allow us to test the process, understand the resource requirements and evaluate whether this approach can support our wider ambition to revitalise our high streets. The approach supports local enterprise, encourages new uses and strengthens community benefit. I therefore propose the recommendations in paragraph 8 of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Allison. Can I invite Councillor Gray, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Digital and Customer Services, to second the report?
Thanks, Chair. Revitalising the high streets of Bishop Auckland and Stanley is essential not only for economic reasons but also for community well-being. Persistent vacancy levels, as we've heard, affects confidence, footfall and perceptions of safety. HSRA powers offer a structured and transparent way to bring long-term empty properties back into productive use. This pilot will help us understand how these powers can complement our existing regeneration programmes and support the wider ambitions for both towns. I therefore second the recommendation in paragraph 8 of the report. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. Are there any other Cabinet members wishing to speak? And does Cabinet agree the recommendations? Thank you. Item 11, Corporate Peer Challenge Action Plan. Can I invite the Chief Executive to present the report?
Thank you, Chair. The Council published the LGA peer review report in January, and this report sets out the action plan arising from that review. The peer review report concluded that Durham County Council is financially stable with strong governance and a positive organisational culture, and that it provides high-performing services delivered by a motivated workforce with strong and experienced leadership. The peer review team's recommendations reflect where we were as a council in October 25, and we've already made a great deal of progress against their recommendations over the last few months. The recommendations made by the peer review team are set out at Appendix 4 to the report. The action plan and actions are attached to the Cabinet report at Appendix 2, and it is pleasing to note that 92% of the actions are already underway or complete, and the progress report update is attached at Appendix 3 of the report. Chair, the recommendations are set out in paragraph 11, which are for Cabinet to approve the action plan, to note the progress to date, and to note that a further progress report will be brought to Cabinet ahead of the LGA peer review team's follow-up visit later this year. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Can I thank the officers for preparing this report and the comprehensive action plan to address the recommendations made by the peer review arising from the Corporate Peer Challenge we did in last October. We considered the peer review report in January, which was very positive. The peer team recognised that since the elections in May last year, the authority had a new majority political administration, and they noted our fresh perspectives and ambitions to reshape governance and policy, whilst also acknowledging that clear portfolios and priorities had been established. When the final report was presented to Cabinet in January, I mentioned that being a new administration, it would have been easy for us to defer the inspection, but we didn't. Because if we are to make continuous improvements, the views of senior officers, Cabinet members from other peer authorities are important to hear. I am happy to move the report and recommendations set out at paragraph 11, and I look forward to receiving the progress update report prior to the follow-up later this year. Can I invite Councillor Grimes, Deputy Leader of the Council and Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Finance, to second the report?
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second this report. We've already come a long way since October, and I've no doubt that when we get the follow-up review later this year, we'll have made even more progress, and that progress will be acknowledged by the peer team. The action plan appended to this report addresses all of the points made by the peer team, but it's now down to all of us to make it happen. Some of the actions are straightforward and easily addressed, but others are whole council actions that require us to build on that unified culture identified by our peers and work together to deliver the outcomes that the people of County Durham deserve. And we will be flying the flag for County Durham Day, of course. People love it when I talk about flags. We've all played our part in getting the council to where it is today, and what's more, we've all had a part to play in what happens next and how we achieve continuous improvement. And with that, Chair, I second the report and heartily recommend that we put forward everything set out at paragraph 11.
Thank you, Councillor Grimes. Are there any other Cabinet members wishing to speak? Does Cabinet agree the recommendations? Thank you. Item 12, we're rattling through it. I know it's a meaty agenda, but we're getting there. Changes to local networks from April 2026. Can I invite Mark Stamper, Head of Inclusive Growth and Partnerships, to present the report?
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to set out changes to local networks to take effect from April 2026. The report sets out how a refreshed local network approach following a member-led review undertaken in recent months, which looked at the overall role and remit of local networks to ensure they're fully aligned to what residents and localities value and to the delivery of the new council plan. Today's report should also provide members with confidence that changes to local networks have developed following that robust member review. The review also revisited the previous extensive public consultation undertaken between July and October 2024, with revisions to the model set out in the paper deemed to be in line with the findings of that previous consultation. The changes to local networks now provide a function that has more consistent population and county council representation across the locality areas, the local network areas, a strengthened and more robust governance structure with significantly increased local community forums to drive community development, and a more strategic approach through the development of a locality board, which will be subject to co-design as the new model of local networks is implemented. So the report recommends Cabinet agree to revise local network boundaries, to agree the new governance structure for local networks, and to agree to delegate authority to the Corporate Director of Regeneration, Economy and Growth in consultation with the Cabinet portfolio holder for Communities and Civic Resilience to review and ensure alignment of underlying operation and fund process guidance documents to the revised model set out in the paper and to agree any revisions or changes required to these. So, Chair, the recommendation is set out in paragraph 14.
Thank you, Mark. Can I invite Councillor Lyons, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Communities and Civic Resilience, to move the report?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mark. I am very pleased to bring this report to Cabinet today. It represents the important step towards real locality working and strengthens our ongoing commitment to building better communities. The model for local networks agreed by the previous Cabinet was scheduled for launch in April 2025. However, with the change in political leadership at the Council, Cabinet wished to review the remit and ensure it was fit for purpose and as efficient as possible going forward. Today's report delivers the outcome of the recent member-led review and focuses primarily on changes to the geographical boundaries of 2 local networks and presents a new governance structure for local networks. I would like to personally thank the officers involved in this process for providing thorough guidance and recommendations on direction to create a structure change which I am confident provides a more balanced geography and elected member distribution across the county, greater involvement and opportunities for our communities, and a more structured and strategic link between local networks and the County Council. I therefore propose the recommendations in paragraph 14 of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lyons. Can I invite Councillor Gray, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Digital and Customer Services, to second the report?
Thanks, Chair. I'd also like to thank the officers for their work on bringing this report here today. I'm happy to second this report today, which provides details of some key changes to local networks as described. I'm reassured that this review, that we've revisited important pieces of community consultation, have listened to community responses to inform our changes to the geography. I'm confident that these recommendations for local networks will greatly enhance their current strengths and ensure that they are front and centre of the much wider strategic thinking around place-based working for the county. I look forward to seeing the delivery of our networks from next month and the increased positive opportunities for outcomes in our communities and the local authority. And they will successfully, I'm sure, deliver to all of these. I therefore second the recommendations in paragraph 14 of this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. Are there any other Cabinet members wishing to speak? Does Cabinet agree the recommendations? Thank you. Item 13, updated allotment policy, tenancy agreement and transition rule, post-consultation. Can I invite Mark Jackson, Corporate Director of Neighbourhoods and Environment, to present the report?
Thank you, Chair. This report seeks approval to a series of refinements to the Council's allotment policy, tenancy agreement and transition rules. These changes build on the significant reforms introduced in 2023 and follow a public consultation exercise undertaken in January this year. The intention is to ensure our allotments remain places for food growing, well-being and community while introducing greater fairness, clarity and flexibility. The 2023 changes standardised tenancy conditions, phased out large animals, supported better local management and tackled long-standing issues around enforcement and historic uses. Since then, we have issued new tenancies, increased site visits and maintenance and continue to invest in infrastructure such as fencing, drainage and community-led improvements. Demand for allotments remains extremely high, with over 2,300 people currently on waiting lists, and this continues to shape the need for a fair and consistent policy framework. A 4-week consultation ran from early January to 1st of February this year. We wrote directly to tenants, co-workers and the waiting list. The survey was also made publicly available online and via paper copies. We received 343 responses, a strong and representative engagement exercise. Overall, more than half, 52.7%, reported a positive impact from the proposed changes, with only around 11% negative. Overall, reflections from consultation are that respondents welcomed clearer rules and a more flexible, humane approach. Key benefits raised include better accessibility, recognition of real-life circumstances, and improved fairness for those on waiting lists. Concerns centred mainly on the extent of the regulation and the need for consistent enforcement, which we will continue to work on through improved site visits and engagement with associations. There were a number of key proposed changes highlighted through the consultation process and in the report, covering caravans and vehicles, cultivation requirements, fruit trees and soft fruit, animals and livestock, and co-workers and succession. Chair, these proposals reflect the voices of tenants, the administration and our wider communities. They balance fairness, flexibility and the need to keep allotments focused on growing and well-being. The recommendations are set out in paragraph 13, including that future amendments to the policy and arrangements will be agreed as a delegated decision by the Head of Environment in consultation with the Cabinet portfolio holder. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mark. Can I invite Councillor Lyons, Cabinet portfolio holder for Communities and Civic Resilience, to move the report?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mark. Our allotments are incredibly important for people right across County Durham. They support physical and mental well-being, they bring people together and they give communities places to grow food, enjoy fresh air and care for their animals. Back in 2023, changes were brought in with a new policy, new tenancy agreements and new transition rules, along with some extra resources. This has helped us start to improve our sites and modernise how they are managed. We now have more consistent tenancies, we've strengthened our maintenance team and we've supported allotment associations through our grant scheme. I've seen firsthand some of the excellent projects that tenants and associations have delivered to improve their sites. We also know demand is extremely high, with around 2,300 people waiting for a plot. Where we can, we've split larger plots to create more opportunities. We will continue to make sure our enforcement is fair, consistent and proportionate so people can make the most of their allotments and enjoy what they grow. The consultation we carried out was shaped by the feedback members had been receiving from residents, and I've personally visited many sites to hear directly from tenants in the wider community. Overall, the responses have been very positive, with most people supporting the proposed changes. These changes will genuinely help people who are working hard on our allotments. We've listened carefully and we're proposing a number of improvements, including clearer rules around existing caravans, reducing the required level of cultivation and giving certainty and support to historic pigeon plots. We also received a wide range of views about animals. People told us they want better animal welfare, and like many councils, we already have rules that mean dogs and horses are not allowed on plots. We've now clarified the position on cockerels for the future, recognising the concerns raised, and we've introduced a transition period so that anyone affected has time to adapt. I'm also pleased that we have been able to update the policy around co-workers and bring in a new approach for bereaved families. With that, Chair, I move the recommendations as set out in paragraph 13.
Thank you, Councillor Lyons. Can I invite Councillor Brown, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Adult and Health Services, to second the report?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to support Councillor Lyons in thanking the officers who prepared the report. But I would also like to thank Councillor Lyons for her time, commitment and passion in updating this much-needed allotment policy tenancy agreement. It's clear from the consultation that these changes are what tenants in our communities have been asking for. This new approach is fair, it's balanced, and it supports both the people who already work hard on their plots and those who are waiting for a chance to get one. I particularly welcome the clearer rules, the more flexible cultivation requirements, and the compassionate updates around co-workers and bereavement. These changes will make a difference on the ground, and I support and second the recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Are there any other Cabinet members wishing to speak? And does Cabinet agree the recommendations? Thank you. Item 14, exclusion of the press and public. Cabinet is asked to move a resolution to exclude the press and public. Can I have a mover?
I'll move that, Chair.
And a seconder?
I'll second that, Chair.
That concludes the public business for this part of the meeting. Oh, apologies. Can you agree the resolutions? Thank you. That concludes the public business for this meeting, part of the meeting. I'd like to thank everyone for taking part and to those members of the public and media who have watched this meeting.